For those of us who have grown up with morals, it's hard to understand why criminals do what they do. But if we place ourselves in their shoes, perhaps we can begin to understand how to minimize immoral acts in a growing generation. Imagine 3 young boys growing up without caring parents, with poor schooling, and no one to show them the meaning of kindness. Imagine them evolving into broken teenagers, walking on a razor's edge. They owe nothing to the world. After all, the world shows little mercy. So in their minds, why should they give anything back to the world? Any potential to be a good person has wilted and died. This is their life. This is their reality. And this is our experience with 3 such men.
I was out taking a walk in our guarded neighborhood when a car pulled up and 2 masked gunmen grabbed me and shoved me into the back seat of their car. It felt like I was in a movie. But then reality hit. My head was covered with a rag, with one man pushing me down to the floor as they sped off. I felt the urge to talk and communicate in my broken Spanish. But their response each time was to beat me and shout at me. But I felt that if I didn't continue trying to reach out to them, then I would just end up being another silent victim. I had to raise my voice to be heard, but they only beat me harder each time to get me to stop talking. Despite this, I continued to speak up, especially for my own sanity's sake, even though it seemed of no use. This continued for about an hour as the car made its way through the city and then the outskirts of town. And soon, I could feel that the paved road had turned into a dirt road. We were now heading further and further away from civilization. I knew what that meant. Recounts from friends and acquaintances of kidnappings and raping in the middle of nowhere came to mind. And this is where we seemed to be heading. I began to panic. And the only thing I could think of doing next was singing, which I did, at the top of my lungs. I sang whatever song about God that I could think of, trying to keep from thinking about what would happen to me next. After some time, the men stopped yelling at me and instead started yelling at each other. I couldn't make out what they were arguing about as I was immersed in my singing, and I didn't speak Spanish well enough either. The man next to me started searching me all over, looking for anything of value that he could take, so he pulled off my rings and my watch. Then the car slowed down, and one of the men spoke to me in a rough voice. He said, "Listen, lady, we're going to let you go now, even though this is something we never do. The only reason is because we respect your faith in God. Now go." And he threw me out of the moving car. The next thing I remembered is standing there, covered in mud, as it had been raining, and seeing the car speeding off in the distance. For a few seconds, I was in a state of shock. I don't even remember hitting the ground, and neither did I feel any pain from all the beatings. I turned to walk in the direction we had come from, through abandoned constructions, dirt roads, and fields, looking for some sign of civilization. As I began to walk, a big white dog came out of nowhere and accompanied me the whole time. There are many stray dogs in Mexico, yet this one was no mutt. And though he was dirty, he was stronger and bigger than most stray dogs. By nature, I'm quite afraid of dogs, and I keep far from them. But this dog was different. I felt an amazing peace and security accompanying me and guarding me. After about an hour, I finally met one person, an old woman who pointed me in the general direction to head in, and where I would eventually reach a gas station. When I finally reached the gas station, the dog was nowhere in sight. It took me a while to persuade somebody there to let me borrow their phone, as I tried to explain in my broken Spanish what had just happened. People didn't believe me or trust me, because it's not usual for someone to come out alive in a situation like that, especially considering where I had been dumped. I called my husband, who came to get me, though it took him some time to find what gas station I was located at.
When she called me, her voice was amazingly calm, considering what she had just gone through. I quickly loaded the kids into the car and we set off in a hurry to find what gas station she was at. They all looked the same there, so it took a while to find her. Because I'm a husband and a parent, my protective instincts wish that I had been there with my wife through this ordeal to protect her. But in a way, it may have turned out worse for us if I had been there. For a few days, she was in shock, shaking, feeling scared, and yet relieved and at peace all at the same time. It was even hard for her to explain and express herself at first. But you can imagine how grateful we felt for life, for each other, and that we were together. Through this experience, priorities changed in our lives. From that time on, we became passionate about doing something to put our talents to use in reaching kids with values and principles. We experienced firsthand what a morally bankrupt society can result in. And since that day, my wife and I have felt called to do all we can to help instill values to the upcoming generation.
I can't imagine what would have happened if I had not spoken up about my faith, which seemed to have triggered a moral reaction that was hidden deep inside my captors. As we began this endeavor, it wasn't without difficulty. My health was affected negatively, and after some x-rays, it showed that I had suffered spinal injuries, which often left me with excruciating migraines for days. And even still to this day, I suffer from it. But I didn't let this stop me. Of course, we didn't take this experience lightly either. We secured our home and took extra safety precautions when going out.
A few months later, while I was on a business trip in another city, and our kids were at home, and 4 men approached the house. They broke through the gate, forced their way through the front door, entering our home with handmade weapons. They held knives at our children's throats and demanded that Agnes give them money and our valuables, or they would take our kids.
I couldn't believe it. A second time, and now involving my kids. 2 of the men eventually pushed us upstairs, made me give whatever money we had, and then they locked us into the bathroom. For 15 minutes, they ransacked the house, bagging valuables and equipment. The kids didn't say a word. They were so brave, and I had to remain calm and brave for their sakes, even though inside I was feeling angry. Thankfully, the men gathered enough loot to feel satisfied, and they rushed out to make a quick escape. We made our way out of the bathroom, and I left the kids at a neighbor friend. Then I called my husband, and I called the guards who patrolled our street. A little while later, the road in front of our house was swarming with police officers.
Nothing tested my patience more than driving through rush hour traffic in Mexico City while trying to get home under these conditions. This second incident affected us much more because it now involved our kids. After this first experience, we didn't feel safe while out. But now we didn't even feel safe in our own home. We couldn't keep living like that, and I didn't want that for my family. So after the dust settled, we took a few days off to talk, to let emotions calm down and regain strength of spirit. It's not a good idea to make plans in the middle of emotional turmoil, so we had decisions to make, and we needed to find a balanced perspective. Why did this happen to us? How to track him down? And, well, we would never know. And we realized it was the wrong questions to ask anyway. It was better to spend our energies preparing for the next stage of our life. We did lose most of our valuables, but in the end, it's just stuff. Most importantly, we had our lives, and for that, we are ever grateful.
We came to realize that peace and satisfaction don't come from replacing the things we lost, but from the healing process of forgiveness and a positive outlook through a change of priorities.
We sold and gave away what we had left and moved back to Europe to start anew with, just $50 in our pocket. But thanks to the help of family and friends, the transition went smooth and quick. And though only one of us knew the local language, we were now positioned for the next stage of our challenge, which was processing and responding to our experiences.
Difficulties can be a catalyst for positive change. And what better time to overhaul one's priorities than when life has already been thrown in the blender? Having survived these two life-threatening experiences made us ask ourselves, what is meaningful in our life? And what could we personally do to contribute towards positive change?
We had experienced firsthand the void of respect for human life, for values that make up the social structure of a successful society. Now, what were we going to do about it? This could have happened in any country, and sadly, this and much worse happens all the time in the world. These experiences have lit a great passion in us to reach children, to promote respect, integrity, and principles in the next generation.
The men involved in our experiences most likely had families and children of their own. What kind of role models do children like this have? We want to interrupt the negative trend and guide their developing character. So it made sense to focus our efforts on children who are still young and moldable. And so began our small beginnings of creating books for kids that promote the importance of values, ethics, and principles through fun, engaging stories and activities that appeal to kids. Our goal is to create hundreds of resources that younger and older ones will enjoy and learn from. This is our passion and our mission, and if it resonates with you, we'd love to see you encouraged to use your gifts or whatever you have to be of help to others. If you would like to check out some of our products and books, please don't hesitate to visit our website at kiddable.eu.
We want to encourage you to use the difficulties in your life as a catalyst to help others. We all face difficulties at varying levels, but they can still be used for good and be an encouragement to others. And as a result, it will likely help you move ahead in processing your own emotions. It did for us.
And our message to the kidnappers is, we're coming for your children. We're coming to fill them with kindness, with values, principles, and ethics, to give them a chance for a meaningful life.